首先，我们有请 CTBUH 的执行理事长安东尼·伍德先生。在场的很多人应该非常熟悉他。他所在的这个机构 CTBUH 成立于1969年，是全球聚焦高层建筑与可持续发展的权威机构。总部设在芝加哥，目前呢在上海有办公室。他们通过组织会议、颁奖、出版和研究等事业，推动全行业的发展。那接下来我们就把时间交给安东尼·伍德先生，让他给我们分享他的精彩演讲。
Okay, good morning, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here in Beijing. It's a real pleasure to see the CITIC Tower, China Jun Tower, almost completed. I first came to Beijing close to 10 years ago and first met with Mr. Wang Wuren, and Dr. Luo Ningjun, who have become great friends of the council. And they told me about this project maybe 10 years ago. And to come back to the city yesterday and see this tower, and actually I was given a pretty special tour of the tower yesterday. It really is an incredible landmark in the city of Beijing. Not only in the city of Beijing, but in the whole country of China and beyond. So it's my job today to just put the tower in the context of what's been happening internationally and talk a little bit about some of the trends and some of the best practices that have been happening in our industry globally. So the first part of this is trends in tall buildings. The first trend, as we all know, tall buildings are getting taller. This is a diagram which shows the history of the world's tallest buildings, starting in Chicago in 1885 through to the current tallest building in the world, Burj Khalifa in Dubai. So tall buildings are getting taller. Perhaps more interesting than the fact that tall buildings are getting taller is the fact that there are now far more of these buildings. This is research that our organization, the Council on Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat, have undertaken, which shows the number of buildings 200 meters or higher that are completed each year. At the left-hand side of the graph, this is 1960, and on the right-hand side of the graph is now. So in the 1960s, the entire world was building typically only 1 or 2 buildings taller than 200 meters per year. Last year was the most successful year for skyscraper completion ever. We completed 144 buildings in excess of 200 meters. So you can see what has happened recently. There has been an explosion of the growth of tall buildings around the entire world. This next study analyzes the 100 tallest buildings in the world at the end of each decade, starting 1930 through to 2010 and the end of last year, 2017. And in this graph, the blue indicates North America, the red indicates Asia, and the green indicates Middle East. So you can see there has been a huge shift in the tallest buildings in the world away from North America to Asia and the Middle East. Now only 16% of the tallest buildings in the world are in North America, 54% in Asia, 26% in the Middle East. This is the same study, but now we look at the function within the building. So the blue here indicates office buildings. So you will see as recently as the year 2000, 83% of the tallest buildings in the world were office buildings. And there's been a huge shift towards mixed use and residential buildings. And this third study looks at the structural material inside the building. Most of these buildings, when they were predominantly in the USA, were built out of pure steel structure. Now that is less than 10%, and there's been a huge shift towards concrete and composite construction. So this is interesting because if we predicted the world's tallest buildings 30 years ago, if we predicted where the world's next tallest buildings would be, we'd have said 3 things with certainty. It'll be in North America, it'll be an office building, and it'll be built out of steel. And now the exact opposite is true. If you're predicting the world's tallest buildings, you would say it will be in Asia, it'll be a mixed-use building, it will be composite or concrete construction. So that's to set some of the context for what has been happening in the field of tall buildings. What about the challenges? What are the challenges that we face in designing, constructing, and operating these buildings? Well, the first challenge is shown on the screen now. The reality is that 1 million people are moving into cities somewhere on this planet every week. Every week, we need to build or expand our cities to cope with 1 million new urban inhabitants. And so the question becomes, where do those people go? Do they go in the American model of the horizontal city? Or do they go, increasingly as we're seeing in Asian cities, the dense vertical city? And we firmly believe at the Council that the twin effects of more efficient land use and infrastructure concentration makes the dense, tall city more sustainable than the horizontal city. I would also argue that we have a challenge with the design of these buildings and how they relate to their context, and especially the cultural context. So I call this the shortfall of tall, because many tall buildings tend to be designed one of two ways. This is a very important project from the 1950s, designed by Mies van der Rohe, the Seagram building, which was an extremely efficient form of commercial architecture, which was then hijacked and supplanted in 10,000 places around the world because it was commercially successful. You know, if you look at this building and look at many, many tall buildings around the world that are being designed and built now, there has not necessarily been a great progression of the architecture. In other words, they're predominantly commercial containers. Shortfall number one. Here's the second kind of tall buildings that are being designed. The tall building designed as a crazy object, as a piece of sculpture. The problem with this, as I believe your President Xi has said quite clearly, that how does the city evolve when it's made up of buildings like this? Then we get cities like this. This is not a city, it's an architectural zoo. And I think we need to fight against this. So cities around the world, many of these cities have thousands of years of tradition and vernacular architecture and culture. And this is being homogenized, and cities now across Europe, across Asia, across North America, across Australia, across Africa, across South America are becoming the same. We have Starbucks, we have McDonald's, which are homogenizing the dining experience, and we have high-rise buildings and architecture, which are homogenizing cities physically. So we need to look for projects like China Jun Tower that is inspired by the culture, which relates to the culture, not just another international global icon. So I now want to show some projects around the world which I think are great examples that are innovating in tall buildings. And one of the ideas that I want to introduce is that I believe each tall building needs to take on responsibilities beyond just the building. Beyond the building. Needs to take on responsibilities for people and for the city as a whole. So I want to show you this project in Tokyo, Japan, which won our Innovation Award a few years ago. It's a glass tower, and on the outside of this tower, we have what is called a bioskin, which is a solar shade for the glass tower. But it's more than a solar shade. The solar shade is actually a ceramic pipe which circulates the rainwater falling on the site. The rainwater comes through the pipe, and when the sun hits it, the water evaporates through the pipe, and it takes heat out of the environment, and reduces the temperature around the building. So this building in itself is dealing with urban heat island effect. Not only is that sunshade protecting the building from intense solar gain, it's reducing the temperature around the building in summer and helping counter urban heat island effect. Here's another project in Sydney. This won our Best Tall Building in the World award a few years ago. Of course, you can see it as adorned with greenery. But more than the greenery, this device at the top, which you can see suspended, they call the Urban Chandelier. It is a beautiful urban sculpture within the scheme. But it is more than just a sculpture. You will see on the roof of the small building are many mirrors. The sun actually bounces off these mirrors to the underside of the Urban Chandelier, and in summer, when you don't want that solar gain, it bounces away into a nearby park. In winter, when you want the solar gain, it bounces off the roof to the underside of the chandelier, and then it bounces down through the glass roof of the shopping mall and gives passive solar gain where you want it. So this is a new breed of dynamic architecture, which is not just static, but is dealing with changing environmental conditions through the year. I believe that bringing nature and natural elements back into the urban realm is essential. Bringing greenery, bringing gardens, not just concrete, steel and glass, back into the city. And by the way, this is Milan. This is a project, real project in Milan. It's not in Singapore, where the climate is great all the year round. This is a climate which gets cold as well as hot. It's called the Bosco Verticale, the vertical forest. We can introduce greenery in temperate climates. Actually, that's one of the benefits of greenery. In summer, it's dense to give solar protection from solar gain. And then in fall and winter, the leaves fall and allows solar gain into the space. However, is greenery enough? Why can't we make the greenery agriculture? So it doesn't just sequester carbon, produce oxygen, provide habitat for homes for animals and birds and insects. It's actually productive. And this is a project again in Japan where the greenery is fruit and vegetables which are consumed inside the office. So really quite innovative. Double skin facades. There are many projects around the world now which have double skin facades. And it's questionable whether the environmental benefits of the double skin facade justify the energy expenditure in the additional glass, and also the solar shade. As you can see here, between the two panes of glass, a lot of energy goes into the solar shade to protect from solar gain from building the building out of all glass to begin with. What happens if that zone actually became a zone for agriculture, where we introduce greenery instead of using energy to create blinds? People want that connection with nature, and the whole zone also becomes productive. What happens if we bring more opacity into the building skin? Not just all glass, but actually bring solid materials to control view and light. What happens if the skin itself becomes dynamic? So as the sun hits it, devices open and close. These are all real projects, by the way. This project is in Abu Dhabi. Another breed of towers. Towers that produce and provide social space inside the building. This is the Commerzbank in Frankfurt. And you can see here in this scheme that there are significant sky gardens stepping up around the building, so that every worker inside the building has access to communal garden space. We've seen this carried to even further degree with the Shanghai Tower, where the whole skin of the building is wrapped in these sky gardens. How about we started to link the towers? This was the subject of my PhD, was on skybridge connections between buildings. So as we make the push to the vertical realm, why don't we bring in the horizontal? This is a project in Singapore, government-built high-rise housing, which are linked, where the towers are linked at various levels, creating urban habitat in the sky. Another project in Singapore, a combination of vertical and horizontal blocks. And when you look down on this scheme, you can see the amount of urban habitat, gardens, and space that are created inside the building. So the roof of a tall building is arguably its most important feature. It's its most valuable space. The roof of a tall building has the best view, has the cleanest environment. Everybody wants to be at the roof. And most tall buildings, we don't use the roof. We fill it up with technical stuff, water tanks, machine lift overrun, antennae, satellite dishes. We could be using the roofs of tall buildings far more. You know, that you can imagine these roofs being used. Look at this project in Hong Kong, just completed last year, that shows the use of this roof for gardens. Yesterday, I toured the China Jun Tower, which is, as I already said, fantastic. The building on the skyline is incredible. This space at the top, to me, it feels like a European cathedral, actually. You know, with the bridges, it feels like something that Antonio Gaudi might have designed in Barcelona. This is a fantastic space. But the thing that excited me the most in touring China Jun Tower yesterday was this space, which I have never seen on a tall building anywhere in the world. And yesterday there was no wind, the weather was fantastic, and this to me is really a garden in the making, a roof garden in the making, something really, really special. The roofs can go even further. If we started to link buildings, link the roofs of buildings, then we can get projects like this, where we have literally parks in the sky. So to finish with, I just want to bring this together to propose how cities might develop in the future. So if we imagine conceptually a city, a mid-rise city at the moment, a low or a mid-rise city, and currently 1 million people live in this city. These 1 million people absolutely rely on the ground plane for their support. The ground plane is where all the infrastructure exists. And when I say infrastructure, I don't just mean physical infrastructure, transport, water, power, sewage, waste. But I don't just mean physical infrastructure, I mean social infrastructure. I mean parks, sidewalks, community. I mean schools and doctors' surgeries and shops and civic functions. It all happens at the ground plane. Now this city, over the next 10 years, is going to go from 1 to 10 million people. So where do these 9 million people go? Does the city expand horizontally? No. Because the horizontal city is unsustainable for the energy taken to build and operate the city. So it has to go vertically. But this is what's happening predominantly around the world. It's going vertically with single projects, supplanted on a two-dimensional infrastructure plane. No. I believe that tall buildings need to evolve where they are a part of that city, flipped vertically. With the infrastructure, with the social spaces, with the gardens, with the shops, with the schools, with the doctors' surgeries. And then they need to start to become linked with the same infrastructure. And cities of the future, this is what we call sustainable vertical urbanism. I wanted to very briefly just explain about our organization, the Council on Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat. Companies like CITIC Herye have been strong supporters of our organisation. Next year we celebrate our 50th anniversary. We are the body that sets the title of the world's tallest building. We have more than 1 million members plugged into our network around the world. We have 3 offices. Our headquarters is in Chicago. We have a European office in Italy, and we have an Asia office in Shanghai, Tongji University in Shanghai. We also have chapters and activities all around the world. One of the main things we do is our annual conference. And this year our annual conference will take place in October in Dubai. So I hope some of you would be interested to attend this event. It's on the theme of Polycentric Cities, which is about how cities are no longer developing along a single core, but along polycentric lines where we're getting clusters of density throughout the city. It's anywhere between a 2 and 6 day event. We're opening the event with a networking reception at the top of the Burj Khalifa. There will be 1,200 people from the entire world involved in tall buildings in this event. If that is a little far for you to travel, then I'm very pleased to announce today that we will also be having a conference in Shenzhen, China next April, in April 2019, Tall and Urban Innovation Conference. And this, again, will be a very global gathering of everybody coming to Shenzhen, which is focused around our award program and recognizing the best tall buildings and the best innovations from around the world. Some of the projects that you've seen today have come out of our, been recognized through our award program. So I encourage you to submit your projects for the awards program and also get involved in the Shenzhen conference next year. In the bags that CITIC Herye have created today, there's a brochure on the Shenzhen conference and a flyer on the Dubai conference. And submissions for the awards open 1st of August this year. So I'd like to finish by thanking CITIC Herye for being supporters of the council, for inviting me here today to present to you, to say that you have a fantastic tower, which I'm sure will do very well in the awards program next year, to congratulate you on a fantastic project, and to hope everybody has a fantastic day today here at this symposium. Thank you.